Hello. Testing. You are the most intellectual of the chickpeas. Is that how this works? You'll know. On the normal stream, Fall Guys, you know, IQ is probably around here. In this stream, it's up to here. We got some big brains in here. How's it going? Hello, Ben. Did you do your homework? I didn't. Jessica, you didn't do your homework? Actually, let's look at those results first. Let me add the chat. 62% of you did your homework. 15% listened to the audiobook. 20% read a summary. 2% have watched the movie with Lily Singh. If you didn't read the book, does that mean your brain is small? Smaller than it could be. That's all. You read the book like the first week of the month? Yeah, I know. I read the book. I started the book on Tuesday and I read it. And actually, maybe we'll just get into this right away. Most of the time, I wouldn't really care about like, oh, did you read it? Did you do the audiobook thing? Specifically for those two options. But I actually think it's a more interesting question when it comes to a book like this. Let me turn down the music a sec. Because I would argue Bradbury, the author, would probably be very offended at someone, you know, going on Audible, playing the book at 1.5 times speed just to try to power through it and consume it in that way. So I read the first section. I was worried I was running out of time, so I listened to the second. Is the volume no good? Tough volumes? You listened at normal speed? I haven't really been an audiobook person in the past. So I read the first section. I listened to the second section. It was the audiobook version read by Tim Robbins. And then I read the third section. And I really didn't enjoy the audiobook section. And it's not because I didn't like the middle section of the book. I didn't like experiencing this book as an audiobook at all. And maybe that's just a me thing about audiobooks in general. But I think there's something about this one that it's like, this book kind of is just like a love letter to books, right? And with one of the arguments or one of the ideas or motivations behind the book being that like mass media and turning things into bite size so people can consume it in a more passive, easier way, it kind of felt wrong to listen to the book, I thought. Tim Robbins did the lady voices terribly. This is a big criticism of the book I want to get into in general. I agree with you that I did not like how Tim Robbins did the lady voices. It's very like kind of dainty and stupid. But I also just didn't like the book. I didn't like how the two main female characters in the book weren't really characters at all, as much as they were devices for the protagonist's character development. So we'll get into that. So first question was, did you read the book? I'm going to end that poll. And a second question, just kind of going on in the background, is did you like the book? Is that fair? Poll. Did you like the book? I'm just going to put like yes, kind of, not really, and then like I disliked it. I care enough to say I did not like it. I said the same. I saw some of your comments, Rashida, in Discord, especially on like Clarice being sort of like the pixie dream girl. That is the first main impression. The first main impression I got of the book was, you know, Montag's like, I love my job. I love burning books. I'm happy. And then I'm walking home and I come across some pretty young girl, and all of a sudden I've completely changed my mind about what I think about life. And it felt a little... Yeah. Did you get that impression? Am I wrong? Am I wrong about this? It did feel kind of like pixie dream girl comes along, changes this guy's mind. That didn't feel like a paternal relationship he had with her. It felt like there was a little bit of an underlying midlife crisis kind of vibe to it. Is that all of us just sort of projecting a more modern read on the book? All the females were plot devices, nothing more. Totally manic pixie dream girl. Yeah. I did not remember, so I read this book back in high school and did not remember much of it at all other than the sort of main theme of the censorship or burning of books. Although I think the book's more about how mass media leads to a society of people who don't care to read books. Although, I don't know, this is maybe a good discussion point to get into. Ray Bradbury, the author, over the years, I did a bit of reading on the backstory of the book. His sort of explanation for his motivation in writing it changed over time. At first, it was very much about book burning. Then in interviews, he talked more about like the aspect of just mass media making people not interested in books. And then later in his life, he took more of a view of like minorities and special interest groups and political correctness are going to lead to the censorship of books. All of those explanations are baked into the book, I thought, and you only get sort of an unreliable explanation from Captain Beatty mostly about why books were banned. And it includes all of those explanations. But I feel like it's a little convenient that Ray Bradbury over time has just been able to sort of like change his mind about what his motivation was. I don't think you can't change what your motivation was. I think he's just changing what he cares about at the time. We are hung up on the female characters thing. Okay, do you want to talk about that? So we already talked about Clarice. I actually had a bigger problem with the wife character, Mildred. I think she was the most... I think through the Mildred character, you see some of the most interesting parts of the story. The relationship people have with, like, television. Mildred really wasn't a good character. I think it's the biggest miss of the book. If I was an editor, if I was punching up the script. I have a very specific feedback on it. But anyway, the stuff with the TV family she has is, I think, what will stick with me the most upon this reading. Because I feel like that's the most you can kind of think about. I can picture someone living in our society today who goes home, turns on TLC, and just watches My 500-Pound Life, 90 Day Fiancé, MILF Manor, and that is the closest thing they might have to interaction with other people's life experience. So I find that idea very interesting. Can you picture these people? Do these people exist? Do you have any of these people in your life? And I almost wonder if in even a more self-reflection way, a lot of you or a lot of the people who watch streams, a lot of their feeling of community or interaction comes through parasocial relationships with people on the internet, potentially, as you put it, Adam. So I find this is actually the most like meaty and interesting part of the book for me. I'm a Mildred. And you know what the big miss with the Mildred character was? I think there was at least the hint of an idea. So your first introduction to his wife is that she apparently attempted suicide with sleeping pills. I'm almost certain that was the implication. That it wasn't just like an accidental thing, you know, the paramedics come and pump her give her new blood through some device early on. I'm not sure I'm remembering the details correctly. Yeah. So there's this idea that there is a real person within her, not just this like empty shell that actually thinks and feels things. But then for the entire book, we only see that very surface, like I don't even know how to put it, that just very empty experience. At the end, there was even a page, what was the page number? I wrote this down. Page 135. I was so hoping they would go in this direction. This is after he's running away from the Hound, and he's leaving the city behind. And, you know, the war is about to start. He goes, during the night, he thought below the loft he would hear the sound like feet moving, perhaps. He would tense and sit up. The sound would move away. He would lie back and look out the loft window very late in the night and see the lights go out in the farmhouse itself, until a very young and beautiful woman would sit in an unlit window braiding her hair. It would be hard to see her, but her face would be like the face of a girl so long ago and is past now, so very long ago, the girl who had known the weather, had never been burned by fireflies, the girl who had known what dandelions meant rubbing off on your chin. Then he would be gone from the warm window and appear again upstairs in the moon-whitened room, and then, to the sound of death, the sound of jets cutting the sky in two black pieces beyond the horizon, he would lie in the loft hidden and safe, watching those strange new stars over the rim of the earth, fleeing from the soft color of dawn. I so wanted this to be the moment where he remembered Mildred, his wife, actually was someone he loved and had a relationship with. There was such an opportunity here for it to be the twist that maybe they met as very young people outside of the city and she was someone to him. But no, instead it's, I'm remembering the teenage girl next door that would say random facts to me about, don't you notice that sometimes the grass is wet? And if I just like wanted to like shake the book, like, no, this was such an opportunity for a great sort of moment. Instead, it's just him being like, oh yeah, I remember we met in Chicago, which he says to the sort of old guys on the railroad tracks later on. Yeah, it's just such a passing thing later that it, like, he feels some sadness or empathy, but I almost felt, I feel like a few times they don't even said, like, when he's thinking of her, you know, almost certainly being killed in the bombing of the city, it's really not about, it's like, it's strange I don't even feel sadness about it. The marriage could have been out of obligation, though, like, that's what people do, they have to get married, that's what's expected. Maybe it's sort of suggested that marriage doesn't have much meaning at all in this society. So that's a good pushback to that idea, Morin, right? Because when Mildred has those friends over and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm on to my third husband now, and we agreed that, like, if he dies or we break up, like, we won't be sad about it, we'll just move on. And it's like, oh yeah, it's safe to not feel any attachment, right? That sounds great, but then it means you just don't feel anything at all. That was actually sort of an interesting idea there. She still could have had more character to her, though. He could have tried to get to know who she actually was. Yeah, it feels like a miss there to imply that there was someone inside of her who recognized how empty their lives were, to the point that she tried to end it and to never go back to that. She got the short end of the stick. Yes, Alexandra. I felt like there were too many ideas thrown on the page, but no deep dive into any of them. Even the explanation for a society that ended up in this place, I think it's a deliberate thing in the story that you're not given a very coherent explanation. Again, Beatty, Captain Beatty, unreliable, I was going to say narrator, but just like unreliable actor. I think it's impossible for humans to feel nothing at all. That's why the world is full of broken people and many commit suicide. The damage is inflicts, but they choose to bottle up and act okay. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good take. The Hound was scary. I didn't really get the Hound thing. Did the Hound feel necessary? I sort of took it as even the Hound itself, this sort of mechanical animal, is analogous to how humans have just sort of become like mechanical beasts and not like really living in any sort of meaningful way. So I think that parallel was interesting. But I found the sections of being chased by some robot dog was a little strange. It also tries to think she did not want kids. One of the friends says that it's not the thing to have kids, but another says that she procreates to move existence. I don't remember that too well, but it did sort of imply not wanting to have children is within the sort of basket of what makes these people not good. So other than the female character thing, I guess my other major criticism of the book, it paints a very sort of polarized, almost sort of cartoonish duality between the people who still think there's value in knowledge and the people and society and institutions that have embraced this anti-intellectual, anti-book like idea. There wasn't a lot of nuance to that, you know what I mean? It kind of reminded me in a weird way of a book I once made the mistake of reading. It was called Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. An awful book, but one I wanted to finish just so I could say I read it once I was far enough in it. It's the kind of book that comes up in like political conversations sometimes if you meet someone who thinks they're a libertarian or something like that. But the most obscene thing about that book was that it painted people into two baskets, you know? There's the great men of history and industry that move the world forward. And then there's like the whiny, crybaby welfare people who just want handouts. And I thought it was such like a gross oversimplification of how people and societies work that it was very difficult to take that book seriously. Similarly here, even if I am completely on the side of, you know, not wanting to ban literature, or I agree with the author and clearly the direction they're going in, it did feel like a very sort of straw man approach. I felt like it just would have been a much more compelling book if the arguments for the society of banning books wasn't so sort of cartoonishly like fiction books contain things that aren't true, so it just confuses people. I just felt like that could have been, there could have been more humanity to the people and the society that wants to ban the books. Do you think the world can ever move towards a world like this, or are we almost already there? That sounds like a discussion question. I think the mass media making people less interested in long form media, art, journalism is totally something we have now already, right? Can we talk about what side Beatty was on? Yes. So my take of it was he was someone who clearly had a lot of experience with literature. And I think it's a very fair interpretation that he wanted to be killed. Is that a controversial thing? What do you think? We could end this poll. People kind of like the book. I think it's too broad to be like he was on this side or not. Felt like a tortured soul. Yeah, was he someone who had clearly knew a lot about books, who decided he agreed with them being bad for society and was, genuinely motivated to burn them? Or no, was there still that aspect of him realizing the sort of atrocity of it, and it's a kind of like a suicide by that he wanted to die there? That's what you saw in his character, Delphine. He did a lot of things out of a sense of duty. I don't think Beatty wanted to be right. He was well read, but I'm not sure he valued the content within. But he didn't try and stop him either. It was strange. Maybe that's their I guess there was some nuance, at least in that character, right? It reminded me of people who are secretly in the closet but publicly show hatred towards those groups of people. That's really interesting. I like that interpretation a lot, actually. I like that. I think I'm going to go with that. A closeted book lover, yes, Jacob. So this felt like an appropriate first book for book club. 'Cause it's about books. I don't think I liked it all that much. I know I asked you. I thought the dialogue was pretty poorly written. I much preferred Bradbury's I thought some of the descriptive parts were quite nice. But yeah, the dialogue was pretty clumsy. A little rough for me, I thought. It was okay. I find it funny this book is banned. A banned book in some places. Yeah, why would this book be banned? I guess the drug use. I think drug use is one of those things people have pointed to. I don't get why the main book he was hung up on was the Bible, Warren. That's interesting. Even if you... okay, that stood out to me quite a bit as well. But I would say even if you think religion is something you wouldn't carry on or want to survive as they rebuild society in the future. I mean, that book has a lot of historical significance, right? I don't really understand why books are banned in general. You mean in this book or just in life? Unlike Bradbury, who's like, it's the political correctness of special interest groups, most of my experience or knowledge of current events and banning of books isn't really coming from people being concerned about like offensive. It's not coming from like special interest groups being like there's racial slurs in it or things like that. Although we have heard examples like this, right? Recently, it's much more politicized how dare you make accessible to my kids stories about, alternative sexualities and things like that. That's the first thing I think of when I think of book banning in a current context anyway. Is book banning a thing in Canada? I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's a history of it too. And a lot of book banning conversations are not just about is it about banning the book in general, or just what books are made available to kids? But yeah, it's more of a Christian fascist, I want a pure society and I don't want my little Billy or Jennifer exposed to any of that scary alternative stuff they might see on TV. I've never seen a book burning in real life, me neither. Ron DeSantis. I've read, one of my favorite authors is Vladimir Nabokov. His most famous book is Lolita, right? So that's a book with a long history of being banned because it's about pedophilia, or a pedophile anyway. And it's a horrifying book. It's beautifully written. It's very sad. And yeah, I wouldn't want to live in a world where a book like that is banned. And I don't really even understand this idea of sort of just nerfing the world. I don't want a book to refer to things that make me uncomfortable or are bad. I don't get it. If you had to rate this book 1 to 5 stars, what would you give it? I don't know, 3 stars? 2.5 stars? Texas tried to ban this book in 2006 because it went against religious beliefs. Can I ask you something? Why, in a society like this, where people would rather, walk into some VR room where they have a TV family, why would this society even really need to ban books at all? The aspect of people just not having any interest in books, and those more sort of informal mechanisms of social control. The idea that you are just socialized to think books are dumb and a waste of time. Seems like a more interesting and a more realistic than, guys with flamethrowers literally having to show up to keep people dumb to not question the government decisions, but the people are already dumb of their own volition. I guess it's more to just get rid of dissident terrorist groups. Yeah, they didn't really need to ban them. Burning books was just a form of entertainment for them. What banned book do we read next? Feels like every book's been banned by some idiot, right? I think the book burning was more of a symbolic display. Entertainment. Okay, I could buy that. They need to create a villain so people believe the government has a purpose for them. So that's interesting, Julie. Because it seems like their strategy was to make a mass society that didn't really think about stuff at all. Whereas I think, like, in our current cultural context, I think you see more examples of people being manipulated and how do I put this? I think it's harder to get people not to really think about things as much as you can distract people with, culture war type issues or political dog whistles that don't really affect their lives in meaningful ways. We definitely have a society where people are like craving for things to believe in that are bigger than themselves. I think that explains a lot of religious belief. I think it explains a lot of people who fall down conspiracy theory rabbit holes, right? So I think it's much more realistic for me to believe in a vision of society that has indoctrinates people into these alternative truths rather than a society that completely gets people to stop really thinking about their own life context and meaning. But then again, I can also picture the person who goes home and watches TLC all night eating microwave dinners, who never really thinks about anything outside of that bubble at all as well. My book suggestion's more obscure, less known, but I think we should read Unwind by Neil Shusterman. Never heard of it. I don't want to only read, high school English class type books. I would like some contemporary fiction in the mix here. I think it's just harder to find good contemporary books that are very accessible to a lot of people. We had talked about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow being the book for next month, but I have ordered it twice now, and both times the order got canceled on me. I just request that we read stuff that's older so that libraries have it. See, I want to take that into account as well. We haven't even talked about this book for an hour and we're trying to move on. Rashida, what do you want to talk about? You could buy the chapters at Rito? No, so I bought it online and said I would pick it up at a chapters location, and I go there and they say, just kidding, we don't actually have the book. We are over Bradbury's BS? No, I mean, there was a lot to talk about here, even if I didn't love it. Did you watch the movie? I did. Christine and I watched the movie with Lily Singh last night. Pretty terrible. Awful movie, right? Does anyone disagree with that? Did anyone actually like it? Took some very big deviations away from the book. Yeah, it's bad. Croft, I saw you saying before, it's really bad. It's on Crave for anyone in Canada. Did Simply like the movie? No, we both thought it was truly bad. And because Christine didn't read the book, she's like, who's the book like this? I'm like, no. I have my criticism of the book, but I generally thought it was okay. Or even good. I think we're all sort of being a little harsh, maybe. But the movie was awful. You watched for Michael B. Jordan? So it's got some good actors in it. I mean, he wasn't great in it, but Michael Shannon? Is that his name? Captain Beatty is played by a really excellent actor, and it was maybe the only redeeming thing about the movie. The movie was in French? No, it was an HBO movie, English. Michael B. Jordan was Montag. Lily Singh played a reporter. the firefighters in this adaptation are kind of like social media stars too, celebrated by society for burning books. And there's like, books are uploaded to the internet. I guess they didn't want to do a more faithful adaptation that ignored how the internet would completely change how you could censor books. So they kind of have a version of the internet in the story. That, you know, people are racing to upload books to the internet and the government's trying to suppress it. Michael Shannon is great in everything he does, especially Take Shelter. Great movie. It's got a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a little generous, I think. There's an earlier version of the film. Yeah, Paulina, I haven't seen it, but is it from the 60s? Because it was written in 1951, I think. There's a French version from 66. I probably won't seek it out. Anyway, this HBO film, yeah, really awful. And it ends with... I mean, if anyone else saw the movie, I was pretty checked out by this point. There was some suggestion that they'd hid some sort of genetic device or DNA in a bird that would lead to the proliferation of people being intellectual again, and that they just needed to get a bird to Canada. that's the final act of the movie. It really did. I was like so confused. Okay, so did anyone see the movie and can help me understand what the hell they were talking about? That's when you turn the movie off, Mrs. Cool. Yeah. Canada is the answer to in every show and movie. Yeah, I know. Canada, The Handmaid's Tale, all sorts of dystopias. It's like those guys to the north, they haven't gone completely out of their minds. But yeah, and it ends with, actually it's kind of ambiguous ending, but I guess you see this bird fly away with a tracking device where presumably Canadian researchers will use the bird to make people, I don't know, become aware of books. I guess in that way it kind of suggested, actually we never really got into the end of the book. It did sort of end with this idea that it's really not about the books themselves as much as it is the ideas carrying through history, right? I guess the movie was trying to go for something a little bit similar in that it's like these books have been lost and burned, and there was like a young guy who could like recite books who dies. So it's not about the books themselves, right? I like the idea of each person being a book. Hannah. Yeah. Yeah, where's that? Who said that? I guess this is Montag's monologue, right? His sort of realization that these books are representative of people like really pouring themselves into the words on the page was kind of a pretty eloquent and beautiful way of putting it. What book would you be? I thought it's more of this sort of idea that like everyone has a book in them. I mean, everyone has a book in them, but for some people, maybe that's where it should stay. Inside. You know? Is that too mean? It was a pretty fatalistic ending though. Like, yeah, they're gonna bomb everything, and maybe out of the ashes we can be a bit of a phoenix and we can inject some of the knowledge we remember from the past, so society doesn't rebuild itself to be the same terrible thing. I understood the ending as everyone in their group had memorized all part of a book and were responsible for remembering it. Yeah, but did you get the sense they were saying like they literally remember word for word the books, or was it more about the importance of the ideas of certain books and sort of those sort of moral, maybe some of the moral and ethical lessons contained within them were the things being passed on, as opposed to the ability to recite them? Some of them had photographic memory, so they really had the book in them. Yeah, I kind of prefer the idea that it's really just the idea of the books, not the verbatim words themselves. I agree with you, Paulina. You could just recite a book without really understanding it too, right? Especially if it's fiction. If you actually imagine a society where books were lost, or even imagine like an alien civilization discovering what people were just through books, probably be very confused by the fiction if they read that literally. So I agree with Captain Beatty. Burn all fiction. It's full of lies. I remember as a literature student, we used to look for depth when there wasn't any. I have a vivid memory. I had a great English teacher in high school, Mrs. Puchka. And I remember we were reading this book, and I was a bit of a keener in English class. I liked books a lot when I was in high school. And she goes, who can tell me what this section was really about? And I put my hand up, and I'm like, I think maybe the cabin represented I came up with some sort of pretentious thing. And she's like, yeah, do you want to try again? Or say something. Kind of this went on for a little bit. She's like, pretty sure the section is just about how he needed to get from point A to point B. And it was like a great moment of like, sometimes there isn't really that deeper meaning there. It was good. She clocked me. Yeah. I wonder if she's still alive. Yeah, I think the dog really represented North Korea. I think we should read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm not really a big fan of like sci-fi or fantasy comedy books. I've read Hitchhiker's Guide and a couple like Terry Pratchett type books like that. Can this stream not be unlisted, please? If you have the link, you can see it. I think I've been pretty transparent that I'm doing this mostly for selfish reasons, that I thought this would be something to hold myself accountable in wanting to read more books. Because I do a lot of reading in my day-to-day life of like contracts, emails, news. But I used to love reading books, and I just haven't been reading books for a few years. So this is really just a way of making me read. Do you think it's working for you? It took a few weeks. The fact that I didn't start reading this book until like 5 days ago was a bit of a bad sign. But once I was doing it and just like sitting on the couch reading a book and not looking at my phone and there's nothing playing in the background, it felt good. It did feel good. Can we do 1 month of chaos book club where everyone picks whatever book they want? That's pretty funny. It's a short book though, easy to work through. And I think it was deliberate to pick an easy book first. Maybe even for February too. I'm still trying to get my hands on Tomorrow. But if it's not that, at this point we'd have to pick something that's pretty widely available. We could suggest books and do a poll. Sure. I could do a community post like right after this. Harry Potter. You wouldn't read just like one Harry Potter. I mentioned The Old Man and the Sea. I did, because I thought that would be very easy. It's almost too short, although February is a shorter month. Yeah, I wouldn't abandon TTT. It would just be, do we push it till March if it's easier to get? Read Vonnegut, we could. Animal Farm, I would like to read again, but at the same time, like, do we want to have a conversation after about Stalinism? Probably not. I really want to read Candy House. I got Candy House. Whoa. So instead of Tomorrow, this one actually came in. How long is this guy? 334 pages. Is the paperback version even out yet? Because it's quite new. That looks big. Yeah, it's a little long for February. But I have it. What about Handmaid's Tale? I don't want to do just a bunch of dystopian books in a row. TTT is big too. Yeah, maybe we do save it for March. So, yeah. Just shy of 400 pages. That is a longish book. So maybe we save that for a month with 31 days. Paperback is out of Candy House. Okay. All right. So I'd like to do something more accessible and easy again for February. Yeah, and not another dystopian novel. 100 Years of Solitude would be a great idea. You know what? I started reading that a few years ago, and I really couldn't get into it, but I'd be willing to give it another try. I think it's back here. Again, probably not the easiest read. Oh, I still have the bookmark in here. I did not get all that far, did I? It's on page 41. Okay. I got 10% into the book, and I was like, I kind of felt like I was reading Everybody Loves Raymond. And like the dad was just kind of like a bumbling idiot. How about Women Talking? Didn't that just come out as a movie? I do think it's fun when books have movie adaptations. It gives us something else to talk about and criticize. Women Talking, eh? Who's the author? Miriam Taves. Novel is described as an imagined response to real events that took place on the Manitoba colony, a remote and isolated Mennonite community in Bolivia. Oh, this sounds pretty dark. Everyone's pushing for Prince Harry. You want to read the Prince Harry book? I'm not committed to it only being fiction. But I don't know. We really want to read about him moisturizing his penis? Is that what you're into? Yeah, let's not do that. Stephen King, I would save some horror for later in the year, but I'm up for some horror. Stranger, I would read some Camus. Oh, you know what? Some Camus or Kafka would be easy enough to find. Not like dystopian sci-fi stuff. And pretty... Most of theirs aren't too long either. Could be The Stranger. Could read The Trial. Could read The Plague. I think I'd read I've read The Plague. I haven't read The Stranger. How long is The Stranger? Camus. Pretty not, yeah. Is a horror book easier to read than a horror movie is to watch? I mean, it completely depends on your imagination, right? What's scarier? What you can cook up in your own head or what's on the screen? Yeah, Ms. Wizard, you're right. I've been a bit delinquent. I tried to get ahead of it being tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, but it seems like that was not enough time even. So if we say that March is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, so we've just deferred that one a month, we could pick something like The Stranger, something by like Camus or Kafka that's so accessible that you could probably just find a PDF of these books if you really wanted to. We should choose public domain for Feb because it's late. What's in the public domain? Is Frankenstein in the public domain? Agatha Christie? I don't love the sort of murder mystery genre. But I agree. I should make a spreadsheet that's just like accessible to people that has the books planned out in advance. Frankenstein is public domain? It could be fun. It's 823.7 Dewey Decimal. I would read Frankenstein because it's like... It was one of those things that... Similar to Fahrenheit 451, right? People have such an idea of what it represents in culture. But the book's probably very different. Female author? Is it a love story? Because we should maybe read a love story for February, you know? If not Frankenstein's Dracula is an option. I've read Dracula. The Stranger's available for free online? See, that's what I thought. All right, maybe I'll do a poll after this with a few of the more accessible options. Smack me for knowing this, but David Dobrik did a narration of Frankenstein. Why would he have done that? Who paid him to do that? David Dobrik, Frankenstein. Why would that? On Spotify, brought to life by David Dobrik.
Audiobook Classics on Spotify is thrilled to present Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley and read by David Dobrik. It's a story for outcasts, for the rebels looking outside in. It's a story for the scientists, the biologists, the chemists, and the futurologists.
Can I hear just a little bit of...
For the engineers, the philosophers, the artists, the creators, for the dreamers, the wanderers.
This isn't David Dobrik?
For the wayward teen, the introspective adult, the professors, the students. In short, it is one of the most versatile stories ever told. And it was thought of one deliriously cold summer. By an 18th, Frankenstein comes to spot Audiobook Classics.
No Dobrik. It won't let me play the other previews. I just want to hear David Dobrik reading. Do you think he adds like his laugh? Aha! Can you tell he's sticking his tongue out while he's reading? Why did David Dobrik narrate the audiobook for Frankenstein? Okay. All right, add it to the list. All right, is that a good note to end on? I'll follow up on the community page, and we can talk in Discord some more. We'll pick something that would be easy for people to get their hands on for Feb. We'll push tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow till March. E-Smith, I am open to nonfiction titles, but I thought the first few months would probably be fiction. I think it will be much harder to find universally appealing nonfiction books to people, and even autobiographies too. I've seen a few people suggest some things, and it's like I'm sure that could be a great story, but it's hard for people. It's hard for me to imagine as something that a lot of people would want to read. Some people would want to read Prince Harry's book. Thank you, Carla. Thank you guys for coming. Remember, don't tell anybody. Don't tell your peers that you're the smartest. That you're the smartest chickpeas. I'm reading Matthew Perry's memoir. Isn't he really mean to Keanu Reeves in there for no reason? Have you gotten to that part, Paula? Ben, have you read Clan of the Cave Bear? No. Clan of the Cave Bear. Need a chickpea with glasses. We should have a secret emote just for book club. I like that. This is a democracy? No, it's not. This is a dictatorship. All of you are equal, but some of you are more equal than others. Just look up grade 11, 12 English books. Maybe. Okay. Interspecies sex? Okay. Next book will be Clan of the Cave Bear. All right. Tomorrow, haven't decided. I was maybe going to play the prequel, Left Behind, Last of Us with Christine, if she is interested and available. But if not, we could keep playing Cuphead. I bought the new hockey game, or there's a new like horror space game out that I'm interested in. What's it called? Dead Space, the Dead Space remake. So thinking about it. And yeah, enjoy The Last of Us tonight. Very excited for that episode. We will see you in Discord for the live reaction. Yeah, hockey or Dead Space. One of the two. No, please. No Cuphead. Okay. Hockey or Dead Space then. Cool. All right. Thanks for hanging out. You're all smarter now. See y'all later. Bye.